In the winter months of 2024, I visited Caracol, Belize. Caracol is a site of a prior Maya culture that lies on a plateau just at the base of the Mayan mountains. It's considered lowlands and it sits within the jungle at around 1,600 foot in elevation. It's 10 miles from San Ignacio, which is where we stayed for our visit. It's located about 25 miles south of another large Mayan city, Zunantunich. Now what a cool name, right? Unlike Zunantunich, which is named for Maiden of the Rock, Caracol was not that lucky. Caracol actually means snail, but it more appropriately means spiral in the use of the word for the site. And it's not named after a mystical woman that appeared in the late 1800s to disappear into the stone walls. Nope. Caracol's name for the complicated long road that winds its way up to the site. And yes, there's one roadway that leads to this site, and we traveled on it to get up to Caracol for our journey, and it travels through the jungles where British and Danish troops actually come to practice jungle exercises. We passed by an abandoned Chinese work camp. We went over washed out areas of roadways and across several corduroy bridges that were made from wooden logs. And they were built over waterways which had been washed out, or the bridges were being removed for new bridges. It's a dicey drive. Being so far removed, it's a wonder. So how were the ruins found? Well, Caracol was discovered in 1937 when a local logger, Mai was his name, was searching for some hardwood that he could sell off to the Brits and other foreigners to make money. He came upon some large cut stones with hieroglyphs, and he reported it. In 1938, an official actually noted the site as a significant, and he set aside some of the stones and a couple altars that they took out. And it was not until 1950 that the University of Pennsylvania made its way to the site and did a 3-year minor excavation, which mainly mapped out the location of some of the temples, buildings, and a few burials. It wasn't until the 80s that they delved into the site and its size. And how large was it? Well, they kept delving. As of 2010, Caracol and the surrounding area, which comprised of farms, small villages, workers, and supporters of the large city, took up over 77 square miles. It's estimated to be larger than present-day capital city. Not surprisingly, Caracol had a large population, and they factored in significantly in the political tussle of the Mayan culture era, and especially in warfare with Tikal. The population around 120,000 to 180,000 at its peak. The area was populated as early as 1600 BC, but the Mayan culture really started around 650 AD. This date falls in line with neighboring Mayan cities, and in honesty, it falls in line with, well, the fall of other Mayan centers as well. It did not last past 950 AD. It was a trend. Look back at Tikal, Caracol, Naranja. They all died off between 890 to 950 AD. Caracol began expansion after the cessation of the major war with Tikal, just before 650 AD. Now, after this date, it's been found that a great deal of architecture, monuments, decorations at Tikal mimicked Caracol's look. Naranja, which was another poor city caught between these two major rivals, they were a one-time ally with Caracol. They soon became an adversary, and the wars continued off and on between Caracol and Naranja many times, with Naranja losing almost every single time. How do we know about these wars? The tells of Caracol's wars can be found in the hieroglyph carvings left behind throughout Caracol ruins, or the lack of some of the expansion or buildings during certain periods of times. There's lapses in the monuments, and that can also tell their history. During these times of warfare, less fancy bits were created, less buildings took place. Caracol presently is another location where you can peer into the heart of the Guatemalan jungles from the heights of their Sky Palace. The Sky Palace, that's the largest building at Caracol. Cayana or Cana, I've heard it pronounced both ways, but this Sky Palace stands at 141 foot high. In regarding how large the Sky Palace was, at least 70 rooms, 45 benches throughout, ball courts with an easy view from the top of the palace. Steep steps lead you to the very top, and soldiers nest on the very back, keeping a close eye on the Guatemalan border. This palace features huge stucco designs or friezes and huge carved masks, terraces with 3 entryways. There were tombs inside with red and white walls, numerous altars and shrines inside. And that's just one structure, the main structure, but just one. The significance of the size of Caracol can be viewed by the fact that there were 85% more structures than Tikal, which was considered huge. When we talk about structures or buildings, what kind? Well, there were administrative plazas, so think of rulers, controllers, scribes, advisors, possible teachers. There were temples, living areas, tombs, and burial chambers, sweat houses, plaza after plaza, which no doubt contained vendors and traders providing for the entire population. Areas of games, ceremonies, rituals, other buildings such as palaces, ball courts. The various buildings can be filled with carved benches, staircases, carved wooden lintels still in place, platforms. There was numerous causeways that existed between all of these various buildings, roadways. Some of these causeways go all the way into Guatemala and interconnect with small villages and farms that were once there. Trade was extensive between all of these areas, and no doubt these causeways allowed travel faster and faster to these small little villages all the way to the main heart of the city. There are still some functional reservoirs that you can find in the deep recesses of the ruins in the jungles. In Caracol, they have found 53 stone-carved monuments, 25 are stela, or large cut stone monuments with extensive carvings, and 28 carved altars. They also differed from others by having multi-burial chambers, and there were over 250 burials just in Caracol alone, over 200 caches. So think of a collective finding of fine pottery, necklaces with jade and jewels, intricately built carvings and daggers and other weapons of sorts, jade masks, fine cloths, the finer things in life, and buried with them in death. All these stelas and altars, buildings, plazas, these are structures. So all of these structures have excellent descriptions of the specific findings at each of them, whether pottery, burials, jade and jewels, and you can look up the sites in every detail on the individual structure findings, and they're recorded in great detail. The same goes for the stelas. You can read the translations, and the details can be found online and are quite accurate and thorough. Thank you, Google and Society of Individuals who want to share this info. We get wiser through that shared information. There's nothing quite like walking through the jungle canopy and seeing these sprawling structures surrounding you as you walk, and there's spider monkeys and growler monkeys in the canopies above. They weren't quite as noticeable as they were at Tikal, but they were still there. But the sheer size of walking through all the ruins is breathtaking, especially knowing that many of these structures extend further and further into the depths of the surrounding jungles, of which some are recognized and some are noted on maps but not yet excavated. Some of these were exposed to looting at some point, and much was lost to thievery. Walking through the ruins, you can see nature reclaiming them yet again, with the roots of the ancient trees wrapping around the stones, the jungle closing in from the sides and above. There are still active excavations going on at all times, and security is not taken lightly anymore. The military presence was quite noticeable, and some soldiers are strict to refuse photographs, while another took us around and showed us the site of stelas and burials that were on display in a separate area, and he also showed us a tarantula up close. The people are a joy. They're happy to show you the sights and experiences as well. A big thank you from Timber Adventures for tuning into our latest video, and we hope that you stick around, subscribe, share, comment, and click on the notification button. And if you care to buy a coffee to support, that helps too. If you go to a country in Central America such as Belize, be sure to visit these sites and support the local economies and get an experience that you'll never forget. Timber Adventures signing off, forever wandering, lonely as a cloud.